Last year at UC Irvine, you said at that time that you thought that there had begun, a shift had begun. Can you talk a little bit more about what's different about the way audiences are reacting, or maybe the Jewish audiences that you've spoken to? Where is the shift taking place?
I never speak before Jewish audiences. As a factual matter, I'm not invited to speak before a strictly Jewish audience, but nonetheless, in many of my audiences, there are many Jews present, including Jews who come in hostile and prepared to see the devil incarnate, and that actually ultimately works to my favor, because the discrepancy between the image that's projected of me and who I actually am, the gap, the abyss, the chasm is so huge that the mere fact that I don't have horns has already won over the audience. So I rarely have nowadays conflicts in an audience. What is true is because the Jewish establishment is now so desperate, because support for Israel is precipitously declining, that they have resorted to really quite harsh and, you might say, vicious tactics in order to silence the other side. And it's sort of very upfront. It's not just behind the scenes pulling of strings. It's sort of in your face. And so there are times when they have more difficulty getting a hearing. So last week I was scheduled to speak in Prague, Slovakia, and Germany. Slovakia turned into a disaster because it turned out neo-Nazis were organizing the event, so that was out. But then in Germany, where in recent years it has actually not been so difficult for me. Germany is very politically correct, and they're always into their passion plays, beating their chests about how awful the Holocaust was, and it's all just theater. And in recent years, I was able to get a hearing, but recently the Jewish organizations have really started to turn the screws, and so all the rooms that were booked for me were canceled, and then there was a new set of rooms that was booked for me. They were all canceled. And then the Czech Republic, half of my talks were canceled because of pressures from Israel. So they're using pretty bare-knuckle tactics now. It's desperation. It's actually a good sign. The fact that they're resorting to these kinds of tactics means that they're losing. And they know they're losing. That's, somebody commented over dinner. I had dinner with Professor Fadl from UCLA, and somebody commented that despite the huge propaganda campaign by the Jewish establishment against the Goldstone report, and they have really pulled the stoppers to discredit this guy. A woman who was joining us for dinner and who's knowledgeable on the topic, she said, they're still losing. They cannot stop it. Whatever they do, however hard they try, whatever they say, Goldstone is a traitor, he's an enemy of the Jewish people, he's trying to get a Nobel Prize, he's a fraud, he's a fake, he's a liar. It's not working. I mean, those days are really over. When I spoke last night at University of Southern California, USC, I understand there was an article saying I'm a Holocaust denier, and it's just not really credible anymore. It's not sticking anymore. It's not working. Those charges have been overused and have been dulled by overuse. I'm going to start using them against Jimmy Carter, saying he's an anti-Semite, a Holocaust denier, and then you try to use it against Richard Goldstone, who keeps saying, what do you mean, I'm a Zionist? It just stops working. And that's really the only thing left in their arsenal. because the facts are so completely against what they're doing. How can any rational, sane person defend things like dropping white phosphorus on hospitals in Gaza? You really have to twist your mind into a pretzel to justify things like that. White phosphorus reaches a temperature of 1,500 degrees Fahrenheit. And you're going to justify dropping that in Al-Quds Hospital, an Al-Wafa Hospital? You can't. It's a lost cause. And Jewish students, most of whom are liberal, what are they going to do? Wear T-shirts saying, "Go white phosphorus"? You can't do it. It's just indefensible.
Let's take some questions from the audience. We'll start with you.
I'm very interested in practical ways to advocate for the Palestinians here in the U.S. I wanted to find out what your opinions are on the BDS movement, and perhaps also on J Street, if you think that they will be effective.
The BDS is, for those of you who are not familiar, is the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement. It's primarily happening more in Europe than in the U.S.
It happens that I had dinner this afternoon with Los Angeles Jews for Peace, and we discussed those very issues of J Street and BDS. I don't think you can just substitute strategy, tactics, and so forth, and just have a mantra and just keep repeating it. And I'm afraid that BDS, anything that becomes an abbreviation already, it should set off an alarm bell, because it has the ring of a cult to it. In my day, meaning when I was a young man, I was a person of the Marxist left, and we had our codes, our abbreviations. Ours was a DOP, for those of you who passed through dictatorship of the proletariat, And the mere fact that you're using those abbreviations, I think, is transmitting a message that you're talking to a very small crowd of people. And that we have to be careful of not turning our politics into a cult. Trying to figure out how to achieve a goal, and everything that's involved in analyzing, strategizing, and so forth, it can't be reduced to a three-letter phrase. And so I have problems when people ask me, what do you think of BDS? Because already it sounds like abracadabra, a magic formula. And that's just not what politics is about.